see what happens when we actually replace the word white in the 14 words with, oh, I don't know, say Aboriginal, and take to the streets of Toronto.
Just a few times in my life have I been presented with this line of reasoning, not as a joke, not as a satire of what's going on in right-wing politics. Just a few times in my life, people have demanded to know of me why it is that these concepts, this approach to politics, is uniquely offensive when it refers to white people, and that it's not offensive when we do, as Faith Goldy so boldly does here, when we substitute, say, Cree, Ojibwe, Mohawk, Dene, Indigenous peoples of Canada, Aboriginal peoples of Canada, etc.
I've come bearing a nice little petition. It's the 14 words, but I've removed the word white and replaced it with Aboriginal. Let's see how Torontonians feel about those big, scary, hate speech 14 words. Check it out. Very simple. It just says if we want to secure their existence in a future for Aboriginal children. Yeah, sure. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Well, I find this question remarkably easy to answer. How would you feel if we took the same justifications for a white ethno-state that, people like Faith Goldy offer in rationalizing their political position in Canada? How would you feel if we took that same line of reasoning and applied it to northern Japan? What if we just used exactly the same line of race-baiting reasoning and started referring to northern Japan as the natural homeland of white Europeans that always had been and always would be dominated by white people? And of course, you could let a few Japanese people over the border, you could have some degree of tolerance, but that this was fundamentally part of a white European homeland. That might seem ridiculous, huh? That might seem laughable. It's historical reality right now in 2018. At the end of World War II, to simplify history just slightly, the Russians conquered and decided to hold on to the northernmost island of Japan. Go to Google Maps right now, type in Japan, and scroll up. Sakhalin Island, it's not surprising at all, just looking at the geography, was formerly part of Japan. So too were 4 smaller islands on the east side there called the Kuril Islands, which are also bitterly resented and missed by the Japanese. They want those smaller islands returned. Also, all of those islands were formerly inhabited by Japanese people and an indigenous group of people called the Ainu, who were cast out. Today, from memory, I believe the population of Sakhalin Island is about 500,000 people, and the number of remaining indigenous people who are not Ainu, they only allowed the Nivki to remain. The Nivki are under 3,000. I'll pop up real stats from Wikipedia here. So, guess what? There was a big chunk of Japan, a major island, inasmuch as Japan has any landmass at all, was taken, depopulated. They kicked out all the Japanese people. They kicked out all the Ainu people also, and it was repopulated. It was the indigenous population was replaced by white Europeans. And this isn't in the Caribbean. This isn't in the middle of the ocean like Easter Island. This isn't like Hawaii. And each of those histories also worth questioning, also shameful. And this isn't ancient history. This is 20th century. It's absurd. It's defending an absurdity with an absurdity. When white nationalists and when white nationalists and right wingers demand to know why is it uniquely offensive and awful to use this line of reasoning with white people and not with other ethnicities of people, you yourselves on the right, they always point to Japan. They always want to point to Japan as a positive example of an ethno-state. Well, your own line of reasoning has been applied to Japan. The northernmost island of Japan was ethnically cleansed, and today more than 80% of the people living there are white Europeans. So yes, it's rather different when you're standing in a place called Ontario. It's not New England, it's not Old England, it's not Greece or the Ukraine, right? You're standing in a place called Ontario in Canada. Look up the etymology of any of those words. Guess who used to live there? Guess what culture used to live there? Guess what language used to be spoken there? And today when you walk around, you're going to see street signs in the streets of Toronto in so many languages. Of course, Chinese being one of the most prominent. You're going to walk up to a bank machine. You're going to be able to withdraw currency in one of so many languages. When you press the buttons on that machine, what language is the text written in? If you go to a hospital, you want medical care. What language are the doctors going to speak to you? It's shameful to talk about white people being on the edge of oblivion in this circumstance. It's truly shameful. It's truly laughable. And how does Faith J. Goldy respond to this challenge? She goes out in the streets of Toronto and lies and claims that she's partly of Aboriginal ancestry. And she tries to collect signatures for a petition for the preservation of Aboriginal identity.
I just got my ancestry.ca in. I'm 16-part Aboriginal, and now I feel myself called to help with this. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, no Take care. We're looking just to secure the existence of these people in our country and a future for their children.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. Just
no problem.
The sign right there. Thank
Here?
you. Yeah, that their existence is secured in this country and that their future for their children is as well. Okay. If you could just initial it, that'd be great.
Faith, shame on you. If the people within your movement can't see the deep contradictions in what they're preaching, the overt racism they have against the only people for whom Canada really is their home and native land. It's racism of a very different order from whatever fear, paranoia, sense of discomfort you have with new immigrants arriving from Africa, Asia, etc. What you've set up for yourself here is a moral system and an ideology that's internally incoherent when it's applied to Canada for the same reasons that it's totally incoherent when it's used to justify white people living on territory that historically, culturally was part of Japan.
Dun, 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 dun.